Hey everybody, it's Eric Bass from the band Shinedown, and you are listening to my weekly mixtape with Brian Colburn. And let me tell you something, this guy knows his stuff. He does his homework, so buckle up. It's going to be good. Check it out.
Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Tonight, I am so grateful to welcome Eric Bass of Shinedown to the program. Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to join me tonight.
Hey Brian, how are you, man?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm busy,
I can only imagine.
but busy is good though.
Busy is a great thing. Now, before we get into why you've been busy, I always like to start by asking my first-time guests, what does the word mixtape mean to you?
Ah, freedom. Freedom, man. I think about just a different time, a different time in my life. I think about discovery. I think about, sitting in front of a radio, listening to Rick Dees or Casey Kasem or somebody like that trying to record songs as they went by on the radio, like just a whole other thing, a whole other time, man, of sharing music with people, like there was something magical about your friend handing you a tape and just saying, listen to this. And you would because you didn't have anything else going on. It was like there wasn't music flying at you from 10,000 different places. It was like that mixtape got your whole attention. I'm sitting here right now because a buddy of mine handed me a long play tape with Back in Black on one side and Van Halen 5150 on the other side. And that was like one of I mean, I'd heard other rock music before that, but I'd had other mixtapes and stuff, but like that tape for some reason, man. I know it's not really a mixtape, but it's sort of a mixtape.
Oh, mixtapes came in all shapes and sizes and colors.
Long play mixtape, but I mean, but I digested those things because I didn't have any other choice. You hung on to those tapes like they were a diamond ring, and they were. It's like, where's my tape with this on it and that? I remember distinctly running into my sister's rooms and asking them about certain tapes, like, where's my pink tape with this thing on it? My Memorex with it says this on it, and they would have it or they wouldn't know where it was, and they'd be in a panic because you couldn't find your music.
That is awesome. Well, tonight we are here to talk about your debut solo album, I Had a Name, for an album dive episode of My Weekly Mixtape. But before we get into the album, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we got here. As you joined Shinedown in 2008 around the Sound of Madness cycle, and from there you started taking on a role of writing and then producing with the band, starting on 2010's Diamond Eyes and then continuing through several of my personal favorite Shinedown songs such as Unity, I'll Follow You, and Cut the Cord. Can you talk about the transition from joining Shinedown to becoming a songwriter within the group and how they embraced your contributions from the jump?
Hmm. Well, interesting. I'll give you a little backstory on that. I was a record producer, studio rat around the time that I joined Shinedown. I'd come into that role of loving the recording studio. It was something that was always ingrained in me, but I'd been producing and engineering my own stuff, very self-taught, probably for 5, 6, 7 years prior to joining Shinedown. But through that process of writing and producing other artists, a lot of upstart artists, a lot of young bands. I didn't really like working with established bands. I still don't like working with established bands. I'd much rather work with a band who's hungry, who's trying to break out than a band who's already doing it. But through that process, I met a gentleman named Steve-O Robertson, and he was VP of A&R at Atlantic Records, and he had signed Shinedown. And he called me one day and he said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this band Shinedown?" And I said, "No, I have not heard of this band Shinedown." Not because I hadn't heard of the band, because a lot of people had. I was buried in a recording studio. I didn't hear a lot. I actually didn't hear a lot of new music at the time, whether on purpose or just as a result of doing what I do. But he said, "Oh, well, they did that cover of Simple Man." I was like, "Oh yeah, I've heard that." And then he mentioned Save Me, and I was like, "Oh, I've heard that song too." So I knew who the band was. And he said, "Well, hey, Brent, the singer, is writing for their next record, and would love to send him to write with you and record some demos and whatnot." So Brent came to Charleston at some point in 2007. That's when I first met him, early 2007. And I rolled up to get him at his hotel. This dude comes rolling out of the hotel, pink hair, the whole nine. We got in my car. We went to a show. I forget what the show was. Went to the Music Farm here in Charleston, South Carolina, and we went to a show. And we proceeded to get annihilated on the Jägermeister. Like, I mean, done. I had to call my wife. I had to call my wife to come get us. I was like, I can't. Like, you're gonna have to come get us. So that was my first introduction to Brent. We partied pretty hard that night, and then we wrote. We wrote the next day. We worked the next day. We wrote for 2 or 3 days, and then I had this idea. I'm like, hey, I really love producing bands. Like, these songs are starting to come together. What do you think about bringing the band in, and like let's like record these songs properly? Like, I didn't do like finger drums like in the box drums and stuff back then. Like, I worked with bands. That's so like, what do you think about bringing the band in? I was like, he's like, well, I can have the drummer here probably tomorrow, the next day, and the guitar player after that. We don't have a bass player right now. Our bass player's left the band, and I was like, that'll work. So Barry came to town. I met Barry. He and I hit it off instantaneously. So Brent and Barry and I were very not close, but we really gelled together very quickly. I think and fast forward this many years, I know exactly why. We all very kind of similar moral backgrounds and whatever else. But Jason Todd, who was the guitar player in the band at the time, the original guitar player in the band, showed up 2 days after Barry. Barry had recorded some drums, I think, already at that point. And as soon as Jason showed up, man, everything went out the window, went to shit. He and Brent had a pretty codependent, toxic drug habit relationship with each other. And so as soon as Jason showed up, the drugs started, and then just nothing happened after that.
Oh, wow.
Like, the whole thing shut down. The whole thing went out the window, the whole writing session. And so we left, they left without, we didn't complete anything. We didn't really complete song. We had the songs were like working, but like we never completed them. And interestingly enough, Brent left right from me. He went and worked with Rick Beato, and Rick had produced some songs on Leave a Whisper, the first Shinedown record. And interestingly enough, before Brent came to work with me, actually, I called Rick. Rick and I were managed by the same person, and we were friends. And I wouldn't say colleagues or anything, but we were definitely friends. And so I called Rick and was like, this is pre-YouTube Rick Beato. But great producer, man. Great producer. Obviously a super talented guy. I mean, everybody sees
I was
his
gonna say, I love his videos, man.
genius individual. Genius gets thrown around a lot in our business, but he absolutely is. I don't know if he would accept that or not, but he's just highly intelligent on many different levels, but extremely intelligent musically. Anyway, I called him. I was like, hey, man, tell me about this Brent Smith character. And he kind of told me, he's like, he's super intense, and he kind of gave me some kind of a heads up about Brent. Just nothing bad, just that he was intense and kind of how he worked best. But anyway, yeah, so that whole thing fell apart and they left. But Steve-O Robertson hit me up after that. And he was like, well, man, we didn't get anything. And I kind of told him why. He goes, well, hey, they're looking for a bass player. I know you play. And I was like, well, I play studio bass. I really was traditionally a guitar player, but I play bass a lot in the studio. He's like, hey, what do you think about maybe coming and they like you a lot, maybe joining the band? And I'm like, man, after seeing that dysfunction, I was like, I built this recording studio. My wife and I have a lot invested in this. I've got this whole career. I can't see leaving it for that. And it was, it sucked. I mean, it's kind of like this, like I had to make an adult decision about it at that point.
Hate it when that happens.
Well, fast forward to early 2008, or was it late? No, it was late 2007. I get another call from Steve, and he's like, hey, man, look, that guitar player that was there, Jason, and Jason's a fine person. This is not me casting any sort of, I have no opinions one way or the other, but Jason's not in the band anymore. And Brent's really trying to clean up. We've got a new guitar player named Zach, and they would love it if you would come, audition for the band. And I don't know, man. I don't know what it was in that moment. It's the fact that I was being asked twice by someone I respect a lot. I respect Steve-O Robertson an awful lot, and I still do, even after all these years. He's no longer with Atlantic, but he's just one of my close favorite people in the business. But maybe it's the fact he was asking me twice, and I said, okay, send me the song. So he said, well, learn this song and this song, and they sent me, I think, Second Chance and Sound of Madness and Devour, I think, were the 3 new songs they sent. And then I went down to Orlando and played my audition, and then that night, got offered the job. And again, man, we were all just getting along so well. It's like it's one thing to play music with people, it's another thing to just feel like I know these people already. And interestingly enough, there's a picture of that very afternoon. The guy next door in the warehouse space next door wanted a picture with the band for some reason. And I hadn't even been offered the position or whatever, at the time. And they're like, you want a picture with the band? I kind of stood at the side, and Brent's like, come on in, man. So like, I'm already taking pictures with the band at that point. But there's a picture from that day, which is of the four of us, which is interesting. So again, I guess that's just my way of saying, our relationship started in the studio. Our relationship started in producing and writing. Now, as far as getting the trust of everybody, I mean, look, I got dropped into one of the most insane records in rock history, first of all, that I would love to take credit for, but I had nothing to do with. Chris Chaney played bass on the record. Not a slouch.
No, not at all.
So Diamond Eyes happened because Sylvester Stallone called the band and he said, "Hey, I'm looking for a band to write a song for this movie I had that I'm making called The Expendables. And here's a little bit about it. Here's what I want it to be." And he sent over this poem, and I forget the name of the poem, but the beats at the end of every verse would say boom, lay, boom, lay, boom. And he's like, the only thing I want in the song is boom, lay, boom, lay, boom. That's how the boom, lay, boom thing happened in Diamond Eyes. It wasn't us, it was Sylvester Stallone. His
Wow.
idea. He wanted that from that poem. That poem ties into the movie. So I just took it. I was like, challenge accepted. Like I didn't even ask any questions. I was like, we're gonna write this song. This is gonna happen, And so we're on tour, and I recorded this music, demo music on tour, and then Brent took the demo music to his hotel room, wrote a couple things. He and I got up together. We wrote. Well, Zach came up with a guitar lick, by the way. Let me specify that. Zach came up with a guitar lick on stage at a sound check. That boom, wow, da da da, wow, boom, wow. That Zach came up with that. I took all that stuff, put it into a demo form. Brent took the music, wrote the lyrics. We had them figured out. I took the band back to Charleston on a break. We recorded all of the music at my studio, and then Brent couldn't make it for that session, so we were back out on tour. We actually went to Johnny K, the producer Johnny K, who's produced Disturbed and Seven Dust and I think Chevelle and a bunch of other people. We were in Chicago. We went to his studio and he produced the vocal. He recorded the vocals for that. So we got in the studio with him and did the vocals and sent it to Chris Lord Alge to mix, and Diamond Eyes was born. And I think from there, man, it was just like, look, man, this is what I was born to do. I was born to create in a studio. That's what I mean. If I was born to do one thing, for better or worse, for painful or not painful, this is what I was made to do. And then it was just, you talk about the trust thing. There's a lot of trust in a writing relationship, in a songwriting relationship, it takes a while to develop. You have to get in a room with somebody and really see what makes each other tick and see how the process works for the two of you together, or the three of you together, or the four of you together in some insane cases. That's insanity to me, four people in a room writing a song, but three at the most usually, but two preferably. But Brent and I had to get in a room and sort of figure that stuff out. And so when it came time to start writing for Amaryllis, I had a lot to learn about songwriting. I was used to being a big fish, small pond kind of thing, I guess. I was used to making decisions that I thought were great, and songwriting decisions, production decisions, and by the way, by this time, I mean, the band, we toured so much on Sound of Madness record. I believe it's not actually in the Guinness Book of World Records, but it is a record for the most shows played on one record cycle, I believe. It's like
Wow.
400 and something shows we played on that record cycle, I believe. High 300s, low 400s, but it's a lot. And so by this time we were all super close. I mean, there's no way we didn't know each other by this point. But knowing each other in that way, even though we'd done Diamond Eyes, it was like, okay, was that a fluke? This number one song that had this slow burn at radio, and it went on the extended edition of re-released edition of the Sound of Madness record is what
Yep.
that's on. So I got in a room with Brent and Dave Bassett first, and we wrote some together, and that went well. And then Brent and I wrote two or three songs with just the two of us. One of those songs was "I'll Follow You," although Dave ended up adding some. We added a bridge to that song when we got in the studio. The whole lyrical bridge wasn't in the original demo, so Dave's a writer on that song, but Dave wrote the bridge. But the song was pretty much other than that, was in its finished form. But I had a lot to learn because it was like I'm getting all this pushback on things. I'm getting pushback on lyrics. I'm getting pushback on music and all this stuff, and I'm just not used to that. And it became very difficult for me. And I'm I don't talk too often about my neurodivergence, but I've got ADHD, executive dysfunction, and autism, and just different aspects of those things. But I'm extremely rejection sensitive, right? And so and it feels painful to me. Rejection is painful. It's this physical thing. It's been that way my whole life. I just never knew what to call it until I was, sort of diagnosed more recently with this stuff. But man, that was just really super painful for me. So that began the beginnings of me really getting thick skin. Like I realized very quickly with songwriting, because I wasn't, here's another thing I was very used to. I was very used to every single thing that I worked on, every single thing that I wrote was precious and mattered and all of this stuff. And then you get into, a writing session and you realize maybe this song isn't happening and people want to abandon it, that it's not like you're throwing your child away. Like, it's like, no, we just need to move
Right.
on, but it had this like visceral effect on me. But that record writing process was a good process for Brent's and my relationship as well as creators, and learning how to create together. And then the band got really healthy. Brent was able to get clean, and we all got super healthy, seemed healthy anyway on that touring cycle for Amaryllis. And then when we came off of that tour, Brent just hit a wall and crashed back into addiction, and my depression kicked in, and I got a pill habit out of that. I started taking a lot of hydrocodone and just to feel better. It made me feel invincible. And and so we fell into this really bad place, all of us, in that writing cycle for Threat to Survival. And I didn't do a lot of writing on that record. I wrote 2 songs on that record. One of them was Cut the Cord, which I produced as well. And the other one was Black Cadillac,
Yep.
the other song. But then starting into that touring cycle, we all had a very, very big wake-up call and actually got healthy. Right in the beginning of that touring cycle. But then the spirit of this band really emerged during that time, I would say. The current spirit of this band anyway, what I would pin as our identity. And that really enabled me to be way more creative in the band and to ultimately co-write most of Attention. There's some songs that I didn't write on that album, but I love every song on that album, and I produced and mixed that album as well. And then into Planet Zero, the last record, and now into this new Shinedown record that we're currently working on, the same thing. Interestingly enough, this new Shinedown record, the eighth Shinedown record, I'm actually more hands off than I've been since over the last two, namely because of this record of my own that I'm rolling out right now. So, Zach and Brent have been writing an awful lot on this record. I've written quite a few songs. I mean, it's not like not existent or something, but by way of comparison, if I think about the 24 songs that were written for Planet Zero that I wrote I was a writer on every single one of those songs. I think so far on this record, I'm on like 9, 10 songs, something like that, so far. We have some more writing to do, but it's been actually pretty painful to kind of not be able to do 2 things at once. I wish my brain worked like that, but I have to be creatively, I have to be doing one thing at a time for that thing to be great, whatever that is. If I'm doing a Shinedown record, that's all I'm doing. If I'm doing an Eric Bass record and videos, that's all I'm doing, because something's going to suffer. And so I've had to be in this like video making promo land of rolling this record out of I Had a Name record. But again, no back seat's been taken. The interesting thing is, man, is those relationships that have been forged in our band in chaos and in love and in everything else, like that stuff is never going to go away. Shinedown would make the most boring reality show of all time. We all love each other. We all get along. We all support each other. I mean, the I Had a Name record is out because my band encouraged me to put it out, because I've been sitting on it for a while and I just wasn't sure I was going to release it, and just out of insecurities and everything else, and I made it for myself. I recorded purely for myself, and I didn't, I just loved the fact that it existed. So, but they were like, man, you have to put this thing out. So yeah, I know maybe that's more than what you were asking about in your initial question. I kind of went through the timeline there, but yeah, my relationship with Shinedown was founded in the studio, not really on stage, and it continues to be where I'm more comfortable. My role in the studio with this band, I'm way more comfortable with than my role on stage, for sure.
And that's something that you hear when you listen to the albums Attention and Planet Zero, as you took on the full producer role on both of those albums. However, I Have a Name, the album that we're here to talk about today, was actually written during the Attention tour as a graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
Care to explain a little bit about how the graphic novel became a solo album?
Yeah. because I'm sadistic. That's how. Because I don't know how to just do one hard thing. I got to do 12 hard things. Yeah, I was the first European tour for Attention, hotel room in Milan, Italy. I just got done with a workout. I had listened to Biohazard's State of the World Address,
Nice.
a record that I love from back in the day that I hadn't listened to
Oh,
in a long
hell
time.
yeah.
Love that record, man. I just love that record. Talk about a record that like puts me in a place. The State of the World Address puts me instantly in like 1996, playing in hardcore bands and touring in vans. Like that's where my brain goes.
I still have the orange CD jewel case
Yeah.
embedded in my brain.
Yeah,
So
dude, that was the thing, man. Like that record, looked and sounded chaotic. I love it. Still love it. But I hadn't listened to it in a while when I did that workout. And I don't know if that has anything to do with this story, but I always preface it with that because maybe there's some, maybe there was something to that. But I just got done listening to that, did a workout in the room, and I had a voice, and I think a lot of people experience this, a voice in your head that maybe isn't yours that guides you occasionally, and that voice said, you might want to write this down. And so I picked up my journal that I write all my lyrics in and stories in and started writing this story idea down for a comic book. And I've never been a comic book guy. That's the other interesting thing about it. In fact, the next day I called Eric Rickert, who is one of my best friends in the world and has always been my help here at the studio, my assistant engineer here at the studio, or main engineer, depending on the day. But he's a comic book fanatic, like still gets, every month gets deliveries to the house and reads them, knows all the storylines and everything. And I was like, I just started grilling him about comics because I graphic novels. I was like, what do I need to read graphic novel wise? Because like for some reason, I was told to write this idea down that I'm supposed to make this graphic novel. I know that sounds woo-woo to people who don't understand it, but anybody who's ever had, something from beyond tell them something, that's just what it was. It was like, okay, I'm supposed to do this thing. And so I called him like, what should I read? What should I get into? And he gave me some, because I'm obsessed with story. I wanted the story to be good. I wanted to see what do you think are some of the best graphic novel stories out there? And he mentioned Saga. Saga was one of them. And I read Saga and it's excellent. But I just like to know, like, what world am I getting ready to play in? Like, what is this about? Not the story. Like, what is this whole thing about? Like, what's going on right now? Why a graphic novel? Why is that what it's supposed to be? But instantaneously, man, I saw visuals, like instantly. Like I just saw characters and visuals and scenes. And interestingly enough, that what I wrote down ended up being sort of the prequel story to the story I'm telling in this, I will be telling in the graphic novel, and I tell on the record. Because as I started developing characters, I started seeing these side characters that were like, they're more interesting to me. And I picked those characters up. That's why it took a long time, because I started working on this kind of first part of the story. And then these other two characters in particular just raised their hand and were like, we're super interesting. And so then I kind of started from scratch with them and started writing this graphic novel. And it's well on its way. I mean, Act 1 is completely written. Act 2 and 3 are there, just not finished. And then somewhere along the way with that, I had these pieces of music that I was toying around with just on tour on that attention cycle. And I remember going to Brent and I said, hey man, are you in any headspace to start working on a new Shinedown record? And he said, absolutely not, because he does not like to write on tour. But I had to ask him. Well, I've got these pieces of music that they're pretty different. They would either make the most different Shinedown record of all time, or I need to use them for this thing. I've got an idea for them. And he's, he's like, go do your thing. He's like, I won't be ready to write for another, year. So that's kind of where the genesis of the record started. And I started writing these lyrics about these characters and these stories about these characters in song form. And what the record is, what I had a name it's chronological in nature. I mean, it's going from the beginning of the story to the end of the story, but it's just scenes from, it's not really telling you exactly what's happening. Is I was pulling out, it's the same thing I do when I'm writing other songs. Like, if I have something in my head, a scene that I feel like is interesting, something I saw or experienced that I want to write about, that's what I do. And so I just did the same thing with these fictitious stories and characters. And I found it very, very easy to write, lyrically, very easy to write. All of these songs were very easy to write. I mean, I'm not saying there weren't moments of like you have with every song or every, where you have to sit and kind of figure out, like, I need an I rhyme and I can't figure out what it is. And maybe the I rhyme isn't there. So you have to change the word before it to an E rhyme so you can say the E word here, that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about the that sort of logistical part of songwriting. I'm talking about just just everything pouring out was happening very naturally. And at some point I was listening back to one of the songs, a song called Goodnight Goodnight. It's the fifth track on the record. and it's very personal to me. It's probably one of the more personal songs on the record. And I realized, you ever have one of those moments where you have a shocking thought or a shocking revelation about something, and you get ice through your veins,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that shocking thing. And I had that happen. I was like, oh my God, I've written the most autobiographical record of my career, or I am writing the most autobiographical record of my career through these characters. Like, you're not just talking about these characters, you're talking about yourself. Like, every single one of these songs is from you, from your childhood, from your current life, from your depression, from whatever. And what that really did for me is that enriched the record, because it made, now I just didn't have characters anymore. I had characters that were representative of pieces of me and pieces of, and I realized that in a lot of cases when writers are writing, they're doing that. Everything that you make is a piece of you, but this was more, a lot more literal. Like, where I could look at a character like Devarin, who is the dictator who has taken over this world. He's the main character in the Mind Control song and video, first single.
Mm-hmm.
And he represents all of the chaos and depression and everything that crept in and took over my brain. If you take this world that we're living in as my brain, then he's the thing that came in and took over. There's another character named Jeff, and Jeff is this ancient Titan protector. He's one of the former protectors of this world. He's actually the main character in the prequel stories. He was my first character, my first Genesis character that I had for this. And he was called what's called a Dark Eater, and the Dark Eaters ate all of the darkness in this world. And here you go. I'm writing this story not even thinking about depression at all, but here I am writing this whole thing about it. Even that far back, these Titans called Dark Eaters, and they would consume all of the darkness of this world and filter it out. And Devarin came along and killed all of the Dark Eaters, at least he thought. That Jeff is the one that's left. And Jeff represents that former protection that you used to have, like in childhood. Like, it's at some point I was a blissfully ignorant, happy child, and didn't deal with these thoughts, and I didn't ruminate on my mental state so much, and at some point that thing came in and took it over, and so I have a character named Azalia, and Azalia, she basically fights against the fact that she's supposed to be this religious figure, and she's supposed to be this spiritual religious figure, but she's taken on the role of this assassin. And so, if I look at her and what I'm writing about with her, it's this journey of faith, and my journey back to faith from not having it to rediscovering it. And so there's all this depth to this record that again, it was kind of shocking for me to realize what I was writing about. When I'm
Mm-hmm.
writing in the song Azalea, and I'm singing in the bridge of this song, it gets quiet, and I'm supposed to be her, maybe her conscience or something, talking to her, singing to her. And I'm just telling her not to give up. You can't give up. You gotta, like, even when, not till there's no more breath in your lungs, when all is lost, even past all is lost, until there's no other option left, you don't give up. And, you realize that, like, that's that thing in my brain that keeps me going too. And so it's just been, starting with this graphic novel idea into this record, then having that realization made the writing of the rest of the graphic novel. Not that, and again, nowhere in this graphic novel or in this record does it talk about depression, or does it talk about darkness, or rather internal darkness or neurodivergence or any of these things. They're representative of those things, unintentionally representative of those things. But what it did was, when I went back into the book writing and into the graphic novel writing, it just gave me so much more insight into the characters, and it made the writing of the story so much more rich and enriching for me as well.
Well, you've always been open about your struggles with depression, and it's come out through the band's music. And it's something that I personally admire of you as well as the band, because there are songs like Get Up or A Symptom of Being Human. These are songs that speak to me. I'm someone who myself has been dealing with anxiety and battling that monster for years and maybe decades.
Hmm.
And songs like that I use for strength and comfort when I get in my head. They bring me balance and they keep me grounded, because sometimes with my struggles, I feel like I'm alone on an island. And these are songs that when I hear lyrics like that, they speak to me as a fan. And I know that, you know what, we don't know each other personally, but through this song, I know I'm not alone.
Mm.
And from the first lyrics in A World Unseen, you announce, In here, we're all a little bent, we're all a little twisted, and we're all a little broken. Right from the jump in this situation, I feel like even though you're saying that the album's not about mental health, it spoke to me that way. And when I
Mm.
listened to the album, I actually felt that presence in these songs. Was that something that you were looking to achieve with that?
No, that's why I'm so astonished that when I said I had that moment of like realization where it shocked me was that when I wrote those lyrics, in here we're all a little bent, we're all twisted, we're all a little broken. Or when I'm inviting people in a world unseen, welcome to a world unseen, where I'm told the sky moves under me, like it's upside down, a place where reason has no sound, and I swear that God's gone underground. I was writing about this world, right? All of those lyrics were written prior to that realization. And then I'm listening to Goodnight Goodnight. And what Goodnight Goodnight is about leaving that child that you were, that because I don't long to be a child again, but I'm enamored that I had this moment of in my life when depression wasn't a part of it. Like what happened? What took place that brought this in? Because if I could pick that piece of my brain out and throw it away forever, I always said I would. Creatively, it's something that makes me tick. So I don't know if I would throw it away, but like I have those when I'm down in it, I want to pull that piece of my brain out and just eject it and get rid of it because it is beating me about the head. It will not leave me alone. So I think back to like what happened to that child? What happened to that young guy that didn't have to deal with this? And so Good Night, in essence, again, this was the realization as I'm writing about this characters. The hook at the end of the chorus says, "I hope you're standing arm in arm with the things that did you harm, and I hope that you have a good night." Meaning, just you know, I hope that you're still happy, and even the things that harmed you, you're still okay with. But then realizing that, like, no, I'm talking about myself. So having that realization after the fact of like, no, I didn't intend to write that down as meaning in here we're all a little bent, we're all twisted, we're all a little broken. But now I can't hear it any other way. I still see the characters. It's still about the characters. It's still about the story. But realizing that this world that I've created, that these characters live on, this world called PAR, PAR, is, and look, I wish I could come up with better names, but sometimes when the universe speaks to you and says, the world is called PAR, you just go with it. But that is my brain at the end of the day. Like I'm writing about this world that is my brain and my soul and my heart. And it's not just brain. It's way more than that. But it was all completely unintentional. And it's why when I'm doing and again, I'm the world's worst business person. I'm a creative through and through, and when it comes to the business side of things, how to market, I'm horrible. I'm just terrible at it. I can make the donuts, but I don't really know how to sell the donuts. So I'm terrible at selling the donuts. So when we were talking about when I was filling in the team, my management team and the people at one RPM who the distribution company and I'm publicist and about the record, they all latched on to the depression neurodivergent, this record was written about blah, 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 and I had to stop and say, no, it was not written about that. Like, that's why I don't lead with that normally, because it's like, I don't want people to think that, oh, I set out to write this record and I just made them characters. No, that's not what happened. I'm writing about these characters. These characters are genuine. They're real. The story exists. It is what it is. It's just that I was writing so honestly about the subject matter and I didn't realize how much of myself I was pouring into this thing. And then when it was
Yeah.
finished, it's like, oh wow, man, you've just bared it all out here through these characters. And here's the interesting thing about that is some people will listen to it and maybe not get that wholly. Like they won't understand, well, in this song, what is this about? What does this mean? That's good. I don't want it to be a distraction when people are listening to the record. I don't want them thinking, oh, this is Eric having a sad dad moment and he just wrote this record about being depressed. No, man, it's not at all. Ultimately the story, this record and this book are just the first of four books that are going to be written and told. I don't know if I'll do a record for every single one, but ultimately at the end of that story, there's triumph down the road. But you got to start somewhere, and right now we're in you got to start in the darkness to get to the light. But yeah, man, I hope that people listen to it and can pull something from it that will be helpful to them because at the end of the day, I realize as I've gotten older that my job on earth isn't to be a musician. My job is to help people, and it's really something I'm passionate about. And I only really know one way to do that, to help people, and that's just through the silly little things that I make, whatever that is, whether it's a song or a video or a album or And some people won't say it's silly, but I like calling them my silly little things, you know, because it's playtime, man. It's frivolous, you know. It's insane that a 50-year-old man can make a living making songs, but you know, that's what we do. So I would be dishonest if I didn't talk about those things. Because part of me, look, at one point, I was like, maybe I shouldn't even bring this up about, because I don't want it to distract from the story or from the
Hmm.
record. But I realized how important these things are. And there's not enough hope in the world. There's a lot of hope, but there's not enough of it. And so if someone can listen to a song like A World Unseen or All Good Children or Goodnight Goodnight or Can't Go Home, you know, if they can listen to those things and pull something, Mind Control, if they can pull something out of it that helps them with what they're going through, then that's what matters. And so that's why I thought that it was probably pretty important to talk about, maybe not to lead with it, but to talk about it for sure.
Well, you had talked about Mind Control earlier. I want to play a clip of that, as that was the song that was chosen as the first single and video for the album.
I was bought and sold when I was 9 years old. They beat me like a drum. They beat me like a drum. Brain sick, raving mad. When I was just a lad, I knew what I'd become. I knew what I'd become. I don't think you love me like you should. Your touch is old and tired, so I don't think I love you like I could. I think I'll bathe you all in kerosene and light you on fire. Mind control, all this world is getting old. I won't save your wretched souls, but I think I might save you from yourselves. Who am I, the architect and watchful eye, to an assisted suicide, the only one who'll save you from yourselves? Well, I could be forgiving, but I'm not. I think I'll eat your happiness. I like the taste a lot. It makes me who I am. It makes me who I am. And I love to watch you twitch when you're hanging by a thread.
Now, I've always wondered about the mindset of a single from within a concept album, because while I love hearing individual songs, let's use Planet Zero or Dead Don't Die from Planet Zero or Devil or the Human Radio from Attention Attention, as much as I love listening to them when they come on shuffle, I feel like they hit harder when you listen to the album as a whole. Maybe
Mhm.
that's just me getting the quote unquote full experience of the song from the artist's vision. But with that said, was it a challenge for you to decide which of these songs would be the best representation of the album in the months leading up to this release?
Months, try days. There was no single written for this record. So this has been a uh its own dark comedy in and of itself, this single picking business for this record, because unlike a Shinedown record, I can listen to the songs that we have written before we've ever recorded them for a Shinedown record and go, that's a single, 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 for sure. Sometimes all of them have potential to be singles if we've been blessed, right? But with this record, I intentionally just said, I'm not worried about time. I'm not worried about don't bore us, get to the chorus. I'm not worried about any of that stuff. I'm just going to write these pieces of music that maybe take a left turn here and come back. Maybe they take a right turn and never come back. You know, I'm just going to write these songs and they're just going to be what they are. I want to make pieces of art. I just want to make music. That's all I want to do. And so that's how I went about this whole record. Then when I finally decided to release the record, which actually wasn't that long ago, I said days, not months. I mean, it was only a few months ago that I decided that I was really going to go at this in earnest. I'd say probably, honestly, probably July. But the record was finished, so that's a big part of it now. But then the question of single came up, and I was like, I've never thought about it. I never thought about this going to radio. I never thought about this having to be on playlists or yeah, I just thought about people listening to the record beginning to end. That's what it's about. And so I couldn't pick it. I thought maybe a song called Azalea would be the single, but it's a little long, for a single for certain people that you have to placate. But I'm not going to edit it. I don't want to edit any of these songs. I don't want to pull anything out of it. If I were to pull the middle of Azalea out, it's just another rock song. I love the fact that it has this piano interlude thing in the middle, and it's what makes the song itself. So I sent the record around to a bunch of friends and other business, I say business people, that's a terrible way to put them, people in our camp who I'm very close to, and just said, hey, let me know what you think the single is. And everybody came back with a different answer. I mean, Brent thought a song called New Graves was the single. I thought Azalia was the single. Some other people thought Goodnight Goodnight was a single. All Good Children got thrown out there, and Mind Control. And like, it's just like, ultimately everyone's saying, I mean, there were like a couple of songs that were outliers that no one talked about, but so then we had to have a call, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, this is, I don't know. I was almost like, take this out of my hands, because I don't know what the single is. Like, I've told you that from the beginning. Like, I love all of these songs. Let's just find one. And everyone thought that it came down to Azalea or Mind Control, and everyone thought Mind Control was a lot more straightforward. The song starts immediately with the lyric, and it's high energy. And so that's how it happened, man. I mean, I wish there was some sexy way to put it, but it's like, I've had just as much trouble figuring this out as as anybody else. And I was in the midst of making the videos too, and I had to stop, and yeah, I'm directing the videos and editing the videos and everything. So I had to make the Mind Control video, and I think it confused people because, again, one thing you learn in the record business is, like, there is no perfect plan. There is no, you just do it. Just put something out. Like, don't think about it too much. Don't try to be too calculated. If you're too calculated, it'll all fall apart. So this whole rolling out Mind Control, while not perfect in my mind, it's like, okay, that's what we're doing. We're rolling out Mind Control. Well, the WAL and Legion, which is like the two entities that make up the government of my world, their logo is that purple diamond looking thing. And so that Devarin's video is purple. Like, that's every character's video has a color. And so I was like, man, we're rolling right back out with the Planet Zero colors. It's like, people are going to think, like, they're going to be confused, or B, they're going to think that we're not that creative, or I'm not that creative. But that's why purple again. So again, not in a perfect world, not what I would have done. But through this record making process and just trying to make the right decisions, I talked earlier about coming back into my faith, and since my father passed away, I've picked back up the Bible and got back into my faith. And one thing I did with this record was, I just said, I asked for God's help with it. I was like, because I didn't know what to do, I didn't know how to do it. I was like, hey, I'll do the work, please. Of course I'm gonna do the work, but I'm putting this in your hands. You just lead me around. And so when Mind Control is just supposed to be the first single, that's what it is. I'm not questioning anything at all. There's a lot of peace in that, man. There's a lot of peace in not questioning and just doing. And so, because believe me, man, this, especially the video making process, has tried to fall apart a couple of times, like pretty hard. And it's just like, I just pivot to something else and pivot back to something else. And there's a lot of peace in that, of just knowing that I've put this in a higher power's hands, and that there's no wrong answers. It's just doing the thing. I'll give you a perfect example. The Mind Control video, I didn't realize until 3 days ago, when I put headphones on, was in mono. How about that? Everybody's been listening to the video in mono, and I didn't know it. And that would have spun me out before, like a couple years ago. I would be like, this is in mono. Oh my God, we got to fix this. I just very calmly went in and found, it was my mistake, found out what had happened. It wasn't my mistake. It was something that had happened in an import that I didn't catch.
I hate it when that happens.
Somehow it had imported, instead of importing a left channel and a right channel, it imported two left channels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very, very strange. So left and left, which is better than left and right down the middle, but left and left. So it's probably why it still sounded pretty good. It's probably why I didn't notice it. There's nothing phasey about it coming through my speakers. I didn't, think about it. But I just very calmly went in, rebounced another audio file, and called the team, like, hey, can we get YouTube to let us upload, another, I don't know if they fixed it yet or not, but it's in the process. But just something like that, man, just being more at peace with things maybe not going the way that I think they should go. Because you realize that again, I feel like I'm here to help people. And so whatever I have to do to make that happen, there is no fire to get to. There's no reason to get angry about things like that. I mean, I get frustrated, of course, I'm a human, but I'm not a monk, but
Right.
but it's been very calming to kind of release a record this way, and just sort of not have to have all of this gravity around it. Like, that's what tends to happen when you're releasing records and big projects, is there's all this gravity and seriousness to it. And it's like, I'm very serious about this. I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort on it, spent a lot of money, to put this thing out, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's just, this is what it's supposed to be. It's very calming. It's almost off-putting for me in a way, like personally, to feel this way, because it's like, this isn't how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be chaotic, and it just hasn't been that. But that sort of calming stuff started with the single. It was like, yeah, man, there is no wrong answer. Like, cool. Mind Control is the single. I wish I had a sexy answer. I was like, I knew from the beginning that was the single. It's, no, man, I didn't know from the beginning. I'm still not sure. I don't even know if it's the best song on the record, but it's there.
I happen to love the album. I have a favorite on the album. If I could throw it out there and play a clip from that, it's actually, I'll say one of my favorites on the album, because there's a couple that are kind of vying for that top spot, but you talked about it before. Let's play a clip from Azalia.
Get your guns and save your last breath for the ones with no choice, no freedom, no shelter, no voice. And you might be wise, so young and starry-eyed, you might get away with murder if you move. Dear Azalia, what did you do? He left me alone, so I left him for dead. He took out my future, so I took off his head. The dogs are getting closer, I'm dying on the run. They're demons in the hills, and they're coming. Oh, hey, yeah, the devils are coming down the mountain. Oh, yeah, you can't stay and live to die another day. Oh, hey, yeah, the legions are gathered at your doorstep. Azalia, the demons are here, the wolves are at the gate. Oh, hey, yeah, the devils are coming down the mountain. Girl, you're cold.
To me, what stands out about this song is the dynamics in it. There are several different musical tones throughout this 4 minutes and 20-second runtime.
Mm-hmm.
The open almost feels like this whimsical, swirling dream sequence. The chorus is fucking pummeling, pardon my language there, but it is. And then you have the melodic bridge you talked about earlier,
Yeah.
but it all feels perfectly at home together. And I think the reason for that, and this is something I would love to ask you as you're a producer as well as a musician, there's actual dynamics in this song. The loudness wars aren't happening here. When you're quiet with just your voice and a piano, the song is quieter. It's not as loud as when the entire band is playing and it's a heavy, mountainous, thunderous part of the song. There's actual dynamics in the music.
Mm-hmm.
As a producer, I'd love to know your thoughts on, is that something that you were looking to do? Because I know in modern rock music, everybody's trying to push towards louder is better because of earbuds. But there are people out there that genuinely care about dynamics and sound. And as a producer, I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, emotion has always been in the dynamics. Even in a loud song, I want the chorus to be a little louder than the verses. And I wish I haven't, I've developed a sense for that stuff over the years, and I've developed a technical way of making it happen in a mix that if anyone is curious about it, if they ever want to ask me, I'm happy to divulge. I don't have any secrets. But it just involves, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that does this, but it involves working the master fader on the output of a song, when it's like, I want that chorus to move. A great example of that is Black Soul on Attention, Attention. Like the way that chorus hits, that chorus rips your head off when it kicks in. I love that, man. It's just, and Azalia does that too. And I'm glad you could feel that. And I appreciate that. Thank you to Ted Jensen, the legendary Ted Jensen, mastering engineer at Sterling Sound, because he masters all of Shinedown's records and all of my records, and anything I work on, I have him master, because he appreciates that stuff too. And believe me, man, it's something I have to come to terms with when I listen back to a mastered record that I made, which is, this is not going to be as loud as everybody else's record, probably, like comparatively. It's just not. But there's a volume knob there, and if you turn it up 3 clicks, 3 dB, whatever that is, then it will be as loud as everybody else's record, and it'll have dynamics. And so that is a conscious thing I do. I realized that I have to give up some loudness shock value in that, like everybody wants a loud record, man. I want a loud record. I want a really loud record. I want the loudest record out there. Everybody does. But you can't have it both ways. And so, yeah, man, it's a conscious thing. I definitely make those decisions. I want something to breathe. I want it to move. I want it to, for me, it just makes the exciting parts more exciting, and that's what I'm after. I'm after that, I want the hair on my arm to stand up And I know when I'm working on a mix when that happens. Like I'm like, that's it. That's the one. And there's something to learning how to play a mixing board like an instrument. I mean, even in my mixes, so even aside from working the master fader in the mix itself, where they're drum fills, I'm turning the whole drum kit up and down on drum fills. And then when the chorus hits, the drums are coming up a dB, maybe a dB and a half on the chorus, and then back down. And then maybe some of that guitar is coming in a little bit louder on the chorus. And, you're just sort of, I want this thing to breathe and be open. Like there's a tendency, not everybody, it's not a broad stroke I'm painting here. I'm not saying every mixer does this and I'm also not saying that I know what I'm doing. You know, I just I end up with a result that I like. But there's a tendency to just compress, 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 compress until you don't have to move any faders, especially with vocals. Like just compress the vocal till it just sits on top of everything all the time. You don't have to move anything. I've always been a fan of compress less and automate more. So automating like I'll listen through the vocal and I'll mouth the vocal with my eyes closed. And if there's any lyric in there that I feel, or any syllable that I feel like gets lost, there's a T in there that gets lost, or an S, or the end of this word gets lost, I'm going to automate that up. I mean, if you look at my automation on my sessions, my drums, my vocals mainly are just up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. There's just dots everywhere all over the screen where that vocal's getting automated. And then my master bus is the same way. Not my master bus, my master fader is going to be the same way. What's interesting is when sometimes I mix out to my master fader on the analog console, and so then I'm actually doing it in real time too. So it just depends on it's a lot easier if you keep the master fader in the box to do it, but in the computer. But yeah, man, that's just why record anything quiet if you don't want it quiet? I don't want it to disappear completely, but you get the idea.
Oh, 100%. When I listen to A Symptom of Being Human in the album listen of Planet Zero, that's taking down in a moment on the album. And I think because of how you thought about dynamics is why that song really took off the way it did. I truly feel the music in that song. Obviously, the message is what resonated with so many people, but the music that sits underneath this message is so calming, but then it builds. And the way the drums come in, Barry's not doing some like progressive rock opus. He's playing to the song, but it's so big because of the way the song has such dynamics. Where in other songs, if it was just a loud overall mix, you'd have to almost play more to try to fight the loudness wars.
Yep. Yeah, and it's not just dynamics with that either. You talk about the last chorus of Symptom of Being Human. Something interesting happens there too with the drums. And musicians are going to get this. I'm not getting too inside baseball, but all of the chord changes at that last chorus, once it builds in, they all take place on the and not on the beat. So it causes the last chorus to hop and kind of move differently. If we had just left, shout out to Barry Kirsch, if we had left the kick drums just right on the beat, sometimes I'm in a club where I boom, clack, boom, and instead it's doom, when I don't doom, boom, boom, clack, like that. That'll and move right there at the end lifts that song a ton. Like it's unbelievable how much that changed everything when that happened. It's things like that are the flourish on the end of the painting, like we're painting on air. And if you've ever watched someone paint, I get to watch my buddy Rob Pryor paint. Rob is doing all of the artwork for my graphic novel. He did all the artwork in the album cover. He's a phenomenal artist. Prior, Rob Pryor. Prior to Art is his Instagram. You should check it out. But I get to watch him paint. And there's always some flourish at the end of the painting. You'll think the painting's done and you're sitting there looking at it, and then he'll do like one more thing to it. And that's it. And you realize that one last thing is the thing that's like, it's like the sign off, the signature, it's not the signature, but it's like, and it makes the painting, that one little thing is what gives it its flavor that you didn't know it needed. And so there are little things like that, like the last chorus on Symptom where you just change the kind of cause a little hop where the bass notes are changed on the ands instead of on the ones, or there's a pickup on the end, I guess is a better way of putting it. The chords aren't changing on that, but that's that little flourish, man, that you didn't know you needed, that makes the song live and makes it breathe, and that along with the dynamics, it just I don't know, man. It's funny you say that we're talking about this because I think about some of the music that I love, and there's other stuff, man, that has no dynamics in it whatsoever that I just absolutely love. You know, sometimes I love being pummeled, you know.
Oh, of course. If
Like,
I'm listening
like,
to a metal album,
yeah, dude.
dynamics be
I
damned
don't
at
want any
that point.
dynamics in that at all. Yeah, right. Like if I'm listening to System of a Down or something like that, man, I want to be, I want to be annihilated, Slipknot or something,
Yeah,
But
Lamb of God for
yeah,
me, but
for totally same thing, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't want dynamics. What are you talking about?
So I have to, if you don't mind, this has been such an amazing conversation, but I have a couple of, I will kick myself if I don't ask short Shinedown questions for you that are going to come from a fan perspective, my personal
Yep,
Shinedown fandom.
sure.
And the first one is I'm a huge fan of cover songs. And
Hmm.
no, I'm not talking about Simple Man. The Warner Sound Live Room EP that you guys put out,
Hmm.
you covered I Feel the Earth Move from
Hmm.
Carole King.
Yeah.
I'd love to know whose idea that was and how that came into the band because you guys friggin' slayed that cover. I love the gender flip on it. I love everything about
Oh,
it.
cool. Thanks, man. Glad you noticed that too. Yeah. So the gist of that was we recorded in Henson Studios in Los
Mhm.
Angeles, and so it was they wanted each artist that came in and did that. So there were multiple artists that went in and did the in the live room, and it was a live recording. Like there's no overdubs. Well, on I Feel the Earth Move and on I'll Follow You, I did overdub the bass because I couldn't play the piano and the bass.
Wait. You can't? Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
well,
Okay.
but technically it's all live in the room. So
Yes.
the piano and the guitar and the drums and the vocals were all done live. And no punch-ins either. Like it's like you're just going to do this song. This is what you're going to do. Do these songs. I think there were four of your own songs that you wanted to do, and then one song that had been recorded in Henson Studios. And so the list was long of stuff that we could do. I mean, the Black Album was done in Henson Studios.
Mhm.
Appetite for Destruction was done at Henson Studios. I mean, the list goes on and on. But I just always want to do something unique. It's like, what are people not going to expect? And Brent and I had thrown around multiple ideas, and he called me and he's like, "Hey, man, what about Carole King?" And I'm like, I had not thought of that. Like that's not even one that came up in conversation at all. And he's like, "Yeah, I Feel the Earth Move and You Make Me Feel Like a Woman." Like all those songs were done in Henson, and I'm like, "Oh man, awesome." So I got to work on it, man. I was like, let me throw something together, let me throw an arrangement together. And so we put You Make Me Feel as the bridge to the song, basically,
Mhm.
so to speak. I had to find a way to get down there, but we threw that hook in there at the end of the guitar solo. But I threw together an arrangement, sent it around to the guys, everybody loved it. And that was the first time we played it together, was in that session. I think,
Wow.
yeah, we'd all rehearsed it on our own, but we hadn't rehearsed it as a band. We literally, I think we all showed up at Los Angeles the day before that and just went in and did it. The interesting thing about that version, man, is that's the same piano that she recorded that song on.
Oh,
So if you listen to
wow.
my intro and her intro, it's obviously the same instrument. Like it's that gives me chills to this day. Is like, because when I hear her version of it, it's like I know that piano, man. That's like. But yeah, man, we just wanted to just do something people didn't expect, I guess. If there's one thing that makes us tick as a band, that's what it is trying to, because a lot of people second guess us a lot, and it's caused us to walk around with a little chip on our shoulder. So just to kind of make the chip bigger, sometimes we want to do things that people don't expect as well. So
All right. Second question. Attention album. A New Way to Die was a bonus track that you can only get if you purchased the album at Walmart and you had to download it and it was only an MP3. So being such a huge fan of this one, I have to ask, and it's a small minor gripe of all the years I've been a Shinedown fan. How did A New Way to Die not make the original Attention album?
yeah. I don't remember why that's not on the record. And honestly, you just brought up a song that I have not thought about in a lot of years. I hadn't thought about that song in a minute. Wow, man. I remember recording that song for sure. Zach played bass on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on that song. I played guitar on that song. He played bass on that song. We do that a lot. We'll switch. If you write the riff in Shinedown, you generally going to play the song on the record. Like there's no, or a song like Dead Don't Die, the intro is Zach. The intro and verses is Zach because he wrote that, and then it gets to the chorus, and I wrote the chorus riff, so I played the choruses on that song, and so there's a lot of like flip flop switching around, kind of stuff that happens on our records like that. Zach
Oh,
played
wow.
bass on A New Way to Die. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I don't know why that's not on the record. Here's the thing. Obviously, at the end of the day, we decided, the word committee sounds awful. Everything happens by committee, meaning the four band members decide, like, what do we think the record is? And at some point, that was decided that didn't belong on the record for whatever reason. So that's the best answer I have for you. I wish I had something more, more woo woo than that, but that's it.
Okay, so then for this third question, I wouldn't be doing my part as a podcaster if I didn't ask if there was any dirt that you'd be willing to share on Shinedown 8 with the My Weekly Mixtape listeners.
Ooh, dirt about it. Trying to think of dirt at this point. Man, I don't know why this is the first thing that popped in my head, and I apologize if this is not what you're looking for. The first set of songs that we wrote for the record, it was me, Brent, and Dave Bassett wrote. I was not well. I was not mentally well the whole time. And there's a song called The Killing Fields, which is a song that I love very much. Dance Kids Dance is another one that we wrote. Searchlight is another song that we wrote. But there's one in particular called The Pilot that is, it's one of the sweetest things. I don't know if anyone's ever given me a sweeter gift than this. And I wish I could take credit for the writing of the song, but it wasn't me. There's a song called The Pilot that's going to be on the record that I had a moment, man, where I just like kind of unloaded and vented to Dave and to Brent, because we're all great friends. And it was just one of those things about how, like, man, I'm not in a good place, and I don't know what's happening with my brain, and you know, not sure I want to be here, and all of that stuff, and it helps to talk about those things with people. I encourage everyone to talk about those things. Like even the stuff you don't want to say, like when I say I don't want to be here, like that's a heavy, 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 heavy thing to say. But sometimes, man, you have to make your friends your therapist, and sometimes you have to they don't have to have the answers, but it just helps for you to articulate those things to somebody. But I got done articulating these things to him, and the next day we got back to writing, and it wasn't going well. And Brent looked at Dave and he said, "Do you want to play it for me?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And evidently Brent had gone by Dave's hotel room that night after we got finished, and Dave was working on this song, and he played it for Brent. And Brent's like, "Man, you got to play that for Eric." And Dave's like, "I don't know, man." He's like, "That's super personal. Like, I don't know." And I think Dave thought maybe I'd be mad or something. I was like, there was nothing of the sort. And he played me this song called The Pilot that he wrote about me and about what I was going through from my perspective. And dude, it's like, I can't wait for everybody to hear it. It's, again, I wish I could claim songwriting on it. I don't have any songwriting on it whatsoever. I played the acoustic guitar on it and recorded it, but it's a very different place for Brent's voice too, because it's soft. There's no trying to overpower the song at all, ever once in the song. He's basically singing in a speaking voice the whole song. And it's, I don't know, just probably the, I don't know, when I think about gifts that people have given me over the years, like that's just one that, and I probably don't tell him, and I probably don't tell Dave enough about it either. But yeah, so there you go. There's some. Sorry, this kind of solemn dirt, but it's dirt, and nonetheless, whether it's dirt or not, there's something that's the first inside scoop on the record anybody's had. How about that?
All right. Well, the one thing I will follow it up with then, Attention, concept album. I Have a Name, concept album.
Yeah. Planet
Zero, concept album. Shinedown 8?
Not a concept album.
All right.
Not a concept album. A back to more of what Threat to Survival was, what Sound of Madness was, which is just a collection of songs, and definitely from a real place. Nothing's changed in that department. It's just that was sort of something agreed upon before we even started writing. It's like let's just and again, it's like I think everyone's gaze kind of shoots at me when they say concept record, because it's like I've been responsible for those 3 records, and they're all 3 concept records, but all of those were unintentional. But other than my record was not an unintentional concept record, but the rest of them were pretty unintentional. They ended up just being what they are. So this time we're like, let's just try to spread the subject matter around a little more this time and see if we can't come up with some interesting things.
So with the new album dropping this Friday, are there any plans to tour on the album this year, or is the touring going to be dedicated to more Shinedown throughout 2025?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about all of this is that I'm in a band that's really successful, man, and I'm so blessed. And our entire universe as individuals revolves around that. And so I have to get the Shinedown record made, and then once the Shinedown record's made, I probably need to take a quick breath before the touring starts. But look, so no immediate plans for touring. But if I had a crystal ball, I had to look forward. When the graphic novel comes out next year, that will probably be around November, December, if I have my way. If nothing's on the books for Shinedown at that point, possibly, it might be a possible time to do something. And I've sort of talked to a couple of friends in other bands that people would know and said, "Hey man, you want to do like an all-star band sort of thing?" And I've had a couple people say yes. Also got a couple people that don't know that I have them in mind, kind of thing. But if it were to happen, that's how and when it would probably happen. But I actually don't know at this point. It'd be interesting to try out some frontman genes on stage for sure.
Well, I Had a Name drops February 25th. You can hear this unique and complex concept album in its entirety. Finally, I'm also going to have the album embedded on the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com, so you could check it out there as well. Eric, this has been an absolute honor talking music with you tonight. Thank you first for all of the music that you've created since joining the band and what you've done with them. Shinedown is a band that's extremely important to me. I love what you're doing with the solo album, and I just love the message, and I love the stories that you're telling and the art that you continue to create. So thank you for that. But more importantly, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on My Weekly Mixtape.
Brian, that is so kind, man. Thank you for the words, and thank you for taking the time to listen to the record and to be a fan of the band and of what I do, man. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
And to those listening, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, gain early access to upcoming episodes, chime in on future topics, become a guest curator, and so much more. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.